Welcome to my video on how to actually improve in Deadlock. If you clicked on this video, I'm going to assume you're someone who is genuinely interested in improving, probably more so than the average player. This video is made for people who are willing to put in extra effort. That means things like watching VOD reviews, analyzing your own gameplay, practicing your aim, and putting in time to improving your mechanics. So if that sounds like you, then this is exactly the video for you. Now, if you're someone who just wants to casually play the game and have fun, that's completely fine. But a lot of the methods I'm going to talk about this probably won't be the best use of your time. That being said, there are still plenty of things in this video that anyone can take away and use to become a better player, even if you're not trying to take improvement as seriously. But with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Before the game even starts, you should already have an idea of what you want to focus on improving. The important thing here is making sure your focus is specific. Don't just say, I want to improve my movement, because movement is way too broad of a skill to work on all at once. If your goal is too general, it's going to be difficult to actually track your progress or figure out exactly what you need to change. Instead, break the goal down into something more specific. For example, instead of saying, I want better movement, you could focus on improving your movement during map rotations. Maybe that means learning when to use the vents and using the teleporters more efficiently, or just finding better routes around the map. Or if you're learning a new hero, let's say Venator, you could focus on something much more specific, like improving how often you hit your gut shot wall stuns. The more specific your goal is, the easier it becomes to recognize mistakes and actually improve. But that brings up an important question. How do you even figure out what you should be focusing on in the first place? And that leads us perfectly into our next topic, VOD reviewing. VOD reviewing is one of the most common pieces of advice that people will give when talking about improvement. But the problem is, nobody actually explains how to VOD review. People just say, go watch your replays, but that doesn't actually help if you don't know what you're looking for. So that's what I'm going to cover. There are 3 different types of VOD reviews that I want to talk about. Deep analytical reviews, checkup reviews, and pro/top ranked players reviews. Let's start with analytical reviews. Analytical reviews are something that you should do less frequently, but are probably the most important to get right. The goal here is to identify the actual problems in your gameplay. This is where you're looking for things like bad positioning, missed opportunities, or patterns in your mistakes. Maybe you notice that every time you get pressured, you panic and waste your abilities. Or maybe you recognize that you keep taking fights that you shouldn't be taking. The important part is that you're not just watching your game. You're actively looking for problems and trying to understand why they happen. One thing I highly recommend during any type of VOD review is taking notes. These notes become extremely valuable later on because you can look back at them during future reviews and see if you're actually improving on the things you've identified. Also, don't just sit there and watch the entire VOD at normal speed. That's incredibly boring and honestly a huge waste of time. When I review my own gameplay, I usually watch at 2 to 4 times speed and only slow down when I notice something important is happening. If you want to see exactly how I do a VOD review, I'll leave a link in the description to a video of where I'm doing exactly that. The second type of review is a checkup review. These are the types of reviews that you'll be doing most often, and they're exactly what they sound like. You're checking up on if you've actually improved on your focuses. Maybe your goal was to stop dying in lane as often, improve on your positioning in teamfights, or get better at managing objectives. During a checkup review, you're not trying to analyze every single mistake you make, you're just checking if the things you wanted to improve on are actually getting better. Because of that, these reviews can be much faster. I usually watch these at around 4 to 8 times speed, and then again slow down when important things are happening. You can still take notes if you find something important, but the purpose isn't to deeply analyze your gameplay, it's just a quick progress check. The final type of review is a pro or high-ranked player review. This one is a little different, because you're not looking at your own mistakes, instead you're trying to understand why better players are making the decisions they do. The biggest thing you want to do here is pause the VOD during or before important moments and ask yourself questions. Why are they leaving their lane right now? What would I do in this situation? Did they make a different choice than I would have made? And if so, why? Even if a player makes a decision that looks stupid at first, you need to understand the reasoning behind it. Maybe they pushed into a bad fight and died. Was it actually a mistake? Or did they create enough pressure that their team was able to take a walker on the other side of the map? These are the types of questions you should be asking when reviewing someone else's gameplay. Now, I usually do a VOD review every other day before I start playing. At the start of the week, I'll do one deep analytical review. And on the weekend, I usually try and watch a VOD from a pro or a high-ranked player, and in between is just checkup VODs. Along with that, I try and play around 1 to 4 games a day. Now this might sound like a lot, and for someone with a forbidden J word, or other responsibilities, it probably is. Currently, I have a lot of free time, which allows me to spend more time reviewing and playing Deadlock, but everyone is going to have a different amount of available time, which leads us into our next topic, finding a schedule that actually works for you. Now, when I talk about having a schedule, I want to be clear, I mean this as a very loose schedule. I'm not saying you need to create some insane, perfectly optimized routine where, say, Monday at 5 is VOD review, and then 5:30 you do movement practice, 6 o'clock you go for dinner, and then after that you play until bed. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're someone with a lot of free time, like me, then following a schedule similar to mine could be a good option for you. But if you have a job, school, or other responsibilities, and you're only able to play 1 or 2 games during the week and more on the weekend, then your schedule is going to look completely different. Maybe for you, improvement looks like doing 1 VOD review during the week and another on the weekend. There isn't a perfect schedule that works for everyone. The most important thing is consistency. To add one final note, don't try and cram everything into one day. Spreading out your practice over multiple days is much more effective. Think about it like working out. If you try to do an entire week's worth of training in a single day, you're not going to get the same results as if you did that same training spread out throughout the week. The same idea applies to learning. Your brain has diminishing returns when it comes to absorbing new information. At a certain point, adding more hours doesn't mean you're learning at the same rate. Before I wrap this up, I want to mention something that often gets overlooked. If you actually want to improve a Deadlock, your mechanics and game knowledge aren't the only thing that matter. Your physical and mental state have a huge impact on how well you play. Make sure you're eating properly, get some exercise, even if it's just a short walk. Go outside every once in a while instead of grinding game after game. It sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised at how much better you play when you're taking care of yourself. Your mental is just as important. If you're frustrated, tilted, or forcing yourself to queue after a string of bad games, you're probably just digging yourself into a deeper hole. Take breaks when you need them. I actually made an entire video about maintaining a healthy mental while playing Deadlock, so if you haven't seen that yet, I'd highly recommend checking it out. And finally, if you're serious about improving, come join my Discord, link in the description. If you want a more personalized feedback, I'm going to be offering free coaching sessions, so feel free to stop by and ask about that, as I'd be more than happy to set something up. Anyways, good luck in your climb out there. Okay, bye.